Yes. So here we go. So to begin with, Mandy, I hope you don't mind me saying it was you. Sent me an email with a question. See, that's how you make sure your question gets answered. You send me an email. Could we explore and discuss a bit more about the hindrance of hatred in the meditations? How it shows itself more clearly, but also how it shows itself more in disguise. So perhaps what we mean by subtle hindrances. For instance, when feeling resistance towards an unpleasant feeling, I could be mindful of this, but also wanting to quickly move away from it once noticed. Like in the form of going back to the breathing, as is the practice. But I'm wondering if this is more or less a way of distracting oneself from it. So it's a very good question. And the answer is yes. Yeah, there we are. This is why I talk about lingering with the experience before coming back to the breath. Because the objective of the exercise, because it's not like, oh, you know, this unpleasant feeling is making, lingering looking at this painful feeling is making me late. I have to get on. There isn't anywhere to get to. We're already here. Conscious experience is unfolding. And the objective of the exercise is to understand the true nature of conscious experience. So yes, I agree. I think that people use being on the breath as a way of distracting themselves from things they don't want. And that's one of the ways that meditation gets very tense, because it is a form of ignoring. So and ignoring and craving for life to be different come hand in hand. So it might appear, it's a subtle trick we play on ourselves, because it might appear as though, oh, I'm being mindful. I've noted the painful feeling. And now I'm coming back to the breathing, which is the instruction after all, so that I'm doing it properly. I don't know why there's so much tension, but it can't be anything I'm doing, because I'm watching the breath and I'm noticing these uncomfortable feelings. So how could it possibly be something I'm doing? But it is. It is coming from the root of aversion, which is from where we get all kinds of different forms of hatred, from blood-curdling rage on one extreme to just being slightly bored on the other. They're all forms of rejection, rejecting what's actually going on in our experience. And so that's why I encourage people not to rush back, not to rush back to the breath. Yes, the breath is an anchor, and it's a very good anchor. It does the job perfectly. You can always find the breath, always come back to the breath. But if you stay and linger with the discomfort of whatever kind, you notice the strong urge to want to come back to the breath, or want to go into some distracting thought process so that you don't have to deal with the painful feelings. But if you stick with the discomfort, you stay there with it, there is the chance of seeing that it's transient. And the more you see that painful feelings are transient, the less you have to passionately crave for life to be different, till it gets to the point where you're perfectly welcoming of painful feelings. You're able to observe them arise and pass away. And the practice really motors then, because if you're no longer being put off by painful feelings, you're no longer having to ignore anything in your experience. Yeah. And that's when all the insights can come, because you're no longer having to play this managing game, this game of trying to manage the meditation in order to avoid the things that you don't want. So, Mandy, does that kind of cover what?
Yes, and
Evening.
I think I already kind of was aware that this was the answer, Paul.
Well, I did think when you put the question, I thought, well, Mandy can only really formulate the question because she knows what the answer is.
Yes, sorry, but no, that's correct. And I had just noticed with the meditation just today a bit of tummy ache,
Good.
and I did the same. I was going there and phew, back to the breathing, and then it was very painful, but back to the breathing. And I guess it's a conditioning thing. Maybe I conditioned myself the way in life, but also in the meditation this way
Yes.
to go to very easily deal with the unpleasant, but get on with it. So it's interesting what's happening more and more to see that.
And can you see how the meditation moves on and how it isn't about what we want it to be about? It's going to present us with all these lessons, and you gradually you work out what it is that you're doing. And so, you know, if somebody finds meditation unsatisfactory, if they keep getting tense or they're getting frustrated with it, it's because there's something that they're not willing to acknowledge. And the moment you acknowledge it, you no longer have to defend yourself against it. You no longer have to pretend it's not there. You no longer have to sort of quickly get back to the breath. You can linger with it. You can completely comprehend it and understand it. And then, see, from that point on, then it can come and go as it wishes, because you have taken responsibility for it. You have fully acknowledged it. So there's mindfulness, there's clear comprehension. You can now, as it were, let it go, and it doesn't preoccupy you precisely because you've accepted it. And so from that point on, it just comes and goes. Yeah. It's a subtle business, this meditation, Lark.
Well, that was my question also. Like, is there more? Are there more disguises that the hindrances show themselves in a subtle way?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, you want me to tell you what they're going to be? No. You're going to have to find out. You're going to have to meditate, and gradually you iron it all out. You see all the little tricks, the ways of avoiding, and it becomes easier and easier then to just watch things rise and pass away. You know, and yeah, they will appear subtle and like subtle, appearing in subtle disguises until you acknowledge them, and then you go, oh, hang on, this is exactly the same thing as I was doing before, but just in a slightly new, more subtle variety. So we tend to only have a few favorite ways of trying to avoid reality. For some people, it'll be fantasy and daydream. You know, for other people, it will be a strong volitional attempt to control everything. You know, and what happens is you just catch yourself doing more subtle versions of the same things as you go along. So there are only a few kind of ways that we try to avoid reality, but the subtleties of them, yeah, they can take many forms.
That's interesting, Paul. What did you say? Thanks.
Yeah. Meditation is endlessly fascinating if you're willing to accept the fact that you ignore reality. I mean, because that itself is quite a thing, to finally realize that the problem is I ignore reality. And people build their lives around ignoring reality. And then so it's a gradual process. Yeah, but it's fascinating. If anyone has a question, please, about this or anything else, please do put your hands up. There's the hand. I could never remember the reactions. Isn't raise hand? It's got its own button now. Is everyone happy with that, or is it? Oh, Mark, you have an observation.
Yeah, I was wondering if you would talk a little bit about, in relation to the arising of hatred and craving, talk a little bit about the two arrows.
Okay. In relation to hatred.
Yeah, in relation to the feelings that are part of the resultant of conditions, and then the response to those feelings and conditions.
You've done a very good job at describing it yourself. So yeah, so the actions that we perform in body, speech, and mind necessarily produce results, and we experience those results as the kinds of contacts, feelings, and perceptions that arise consequent to the action. And the action, it might be an immediately preceding action that gives rise to those resultants, or it might be separated through time. So you don't necessarily know that the action that has prompted these kinds of resultants, but those resultants will be felt, that there'll be contact through any of the 6 doors. So that's the 5 physical senses or mind. So for instance, it could be a memory. That memory arising now due to the conditions, allowing that memory to arise now, comes with a feeling. And that feeling then determines whether we respond with, it determines the way that we respond. So we're habituated to respond in certain ways to the rising of certain feelings. And it really does boil down to that. So that feeling, so let's say it's a painful feeling. In the case of hatred, it will be a painful feeling. So you've done something in the past. There's been some kind of action, altercation in the past. The memory of that past altercation arises in your mind now, and it produces a painful feeling. That painful feeling is the first arrow. That's suffering. There's nothing you can do about that. By the time you become aware of it, it's already happened. So what are you going to do? If there's no mindfulness, you're going to react blindly in accordance with habits that have already been established. Because there's no mindfulness, there's no clear comprehension, there's ignoring going on. It's not that you're not aware of the painful feeling, you are only too aware of the painful feeling, but what tends to happen is we get muddled up between the content of the thinking and the painful feeling, and we assume that the way out of the problem is to think about the problem some more, to think about how things could have been different or should be different. We lay blame. We create views about exactly how it is that life should be and why it shouldn't be like that. All of which is ignoring the fact that memory as a contact arises and passes away, and feeling, conditioned by the contact, arises and passes away. We ignore all of that, and we react blindly, and as a consequence, that is new action that is going to produce fresh results. That's the second arrow. And that's down to our individual ignorance. Nothing you can do about the first one because, well, you were ignorant at the time of that altercation. Now the memory, the resultant, is arising along with the feeling. If there's no mindfulness and no clear comprehension, no understanding of condition-dependent origination, then we act blindly and we produce further future resultants, which might be experienced immediately or might be experienced after a time lag, but you will experience them. All of which can be seen if you practice mindful noting. If you practice mindful noting, that whole course, that whole process will be illuminated. You will see how the Buddha is simply speaking the truth. You cannot get away without experiencing the results of your own actions. And that subsequent attempt to alter reality is the second arrow. So the first arrow, you can't do anything about. Painful feeling, what's you going to do? Second arrow is based on you continuing to ignore reality. That's optional. But that second arrow is what's going to produce further resultants. either now or at some point in the future. Yeah. Does that cover it, Mark?
Yeah, that's great, Paul. I just just love hearing about it.
It's absolutely fascinating.
Mm.
And the more you see it actually unfolding, just the more miraculous it becomes. You just, how could I not have noticed this? Sally, good evening.
Hello. So I was talking in the breakout room with two of the other members about metta, and it was quite a relief when you were talking the other week about not having to be in necessarily the right headspace to think about people with metta. But what I'm struggling with is, what is the process? Because I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm trying to have nice feelings about myself, then I'm trying to widen it out to people that I love, and then people that are not so well known to me, and widen it out further. But I feel a bit like I'm stabbing in the dark. Can you help?
Don't go around stabbing in the dark. That's not metta.
I don't know if I'm doing it properly. Help.
Yeah. So what did it for me is, because I didn't really understand what it was I've told this story so many times, but I saw a squirrel sort of leaping across a lawn, distributing nuts that it had just stolen from a bird feeder. And I was just, I was just overcome with the sense of, well, isn't he just amazing? Isn't look at his tail, as he's jumping across the lawn and he's stolen all these nuts, cheeky fella. And in that moment, I just felt really good about him. And in that moment, I realized, oh, that's what metta is. That's what it is. It's nothing terribly complex at all. And it's not trying to get a feeling. It's the entry point. Well, I found the entry point really was the willingness to spend some time thinking about the good qualities of somebody. And yes, there's a formal way of doing it. And I think you can work your way into a formal way of doing it. And I think it produces extraordinarily powerful results. But make it as easy for yourself as you possibly can. Pick a friend, somebody, not even necessarily starting with yourself, not even necessarily starting with a human being. Okay. Starting general. But the key to it really is the willingness to spend some time just thinking about the qualities of a person or a being and wishing them well, and not believing that I should. So do you remember last time we were talking about the 3 kinds of giving?
Yeah.
Giving to get, and kingly giving. We want, or queenly giving, royal giving.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm so sexist. I do apologize.
Right.
So we want to avoid giving to get with metta. We want to avoid this thing. Well, if I sacrifice a bit of my time and think about this person, I want a good feeling back. Yeah. No. If you do it a royal giving, if you do it without that sense in which I have to get anything back, and you don't overtax yourself, you don't spend too long doing it, but you just get into the habit of thinking well about people and things and life, and it's having the faith that you will be rewarded for that. So it's just thinking about a person's good qualities and wishing them well, and it's like, well. And one of the rewards you'll get back is, and I think this is why it's so important to include metta as a tool for them practicing Vipassana, is it brings you in line with unfolding reality. You're saying yes to reality as it is. When you're thinking about somebody's good qualities, you're saying yes to reality as it is. So you're coming into harmony with the flow of unfolding experience. And that's why it's so helpful for then practicing insight meditation, because you have firstly brought yourself psychologically, spiritually, however you want to think of it, you've brought yourself into alignment with unfolding reality.
Okay.
Yeah. So you are on the side of truth. There's another way.
towards, say you're going out for a walk, and I'm sure a lot of other people get a similar experience where you feel quite uplifted when you go out for a walk and you see the trees changing, especially in autumn, and you just feel such joy. Is
Yeah.
that a form of metta in itself, because you're taking in the wonderment of the changes around you, and you know it's inevitable and you know it's happening, but you're still awestruck by it?
Yes, so it might not strictly be metta, but
Okay.
it does the job. It is an appreciation of the wonder and mystery of life. So you're coming into alignment with the flow. You're coming into alignment with unfolding reality. And that's what this whole teaching is about. It's just you have to go further, and you have to go into a detailed exploration and examination of quite the degree of that majesty and mystery and awe of life. There's so much that we overlook. Even though we're going, oh, the trees are, we still haven't got to the root of the magic. So appreciation is a hugely important aspect of the entire movement towards truth. But it requires that further movement of a detailed exploration of reality. But absolutely, yes.
Okay. That's great. Thank you. Cheers.
Nice to speak to you. Oscar, good evening.
Hello, Paul. Good evening.
How are you, my friend?
I'm very good. Happy to be here.
Good. How can I help you?
Yes. So going back to something you said a few minutes ago, that how people create their own reality just to ignore, like they create their own, the way you phrase it, their own world just to ignore reality.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you be able to expand a bit further? You set an example of, in a way, because there are very sneaky ways that sometimes we don't really notice that we're doing it. Like coping, basically. I reckon that's the word.
Coping.
Coping is like you.
Yeah, I understand.
You don't want to face the truth about something. Then, therefore, it's a lot easier to cope with the fact that maybe you want to create a different truth,
Yes.
which is not really the answer. It's not really the truth. It's just hiding the truth.
Indeed. Oscar, look, the whole of our civilization is built on that. The whole of our culture, it's like everyone is ignoring reality. They don't think that they're ignoring reality. They think they are enjoying it, but they are ignoring it.
It's because it's a lot easier, you think, to bring masses together.
This is the most, you have chosen, if you are serious about wanting to come to understanding, you have chosen the most difficult thing to do possible. I'm not selling this very well, but you have. Because what is involved? What is involved is learning about what all these coping mechanisms and distractions are for you, and realizing over time that they're stopping you from truly experiencing suffering and understanding suffering and overcoming suffering. Yeah. So
honestly, yeah.
So it ain't no walk in the park. This is why we need guidance. This is why we need help. One thing.
Yeah.
One thing I was thinking about earlier today was that who is prepared to give up everything? Who is prepared to give up all their views that they've built up? Because all those views are built up out of wanting to ignore reality. Right? So, so how many people are really, truly willing to give up everything for the truth?
Not many, because people like to be follow a path that they're familiar with.
Yes.
Even if it's the wrong one.
Yes.
So I want to say an example of ignoring reality. It might sound a bit, quite simple, but right. You're having a bad day, let's say, for any reason. They sell you the idea that you can go to McDonald's, buy a burger, feel better.
Ooh, don't get me started. Yeah.
So it's kind of, this is just like one of those ways, where society is just trying to sell you the idea that that by consuming you are gonna fix your problems, be happier. You're just ignoring reality. You're just coping for the fact, addictions, junk food, anything, any type of addictions is like a coping mechanism for the main problem in life.
Yes, and I would say, therefore, that somebody who is intent on genuine spiritual illumination, understanding, can turn that on its head. And what the person does, what the student does, I think preferably under guidance, is they start to appreciate that the very thing that they're battling against is the ladder by which they get out of the problem of suffering. So instead of battling against an addiction, they start to appreciate that they can learn so much from learning to look at mindfully at what is really going on, because there's a pattern in there, and that pattern that can be discovered about the kinds of what we were talking about earlier, about the kinds of experiences we have and the way that we respond, that pattern is going to be true in so many different instances of our lives. It won't pertain just to that addiction. It will pertain to the basic fundamental way in which reality is actually created. So by gradually and gently, but somebody learning about their addiction, learning about their responses, learning about the nature of feelings, it becomes the rungs of the ladder by which you overcome suffering. So it's simply a question of attitude. So rather than battling against it, it's using it in order to grow and to transcend.
And it's also important. It's also about recognizing that you need to face the root of that painful feeling that is the reason that you indulge into these bad habits.
That's what the training will help give you, that insight.
Well, thank you, Paul. Yeah.
Right. Jim, you got your hand up. What you have?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do. Hang on.
Was that an error? You're trying to think something up on the spot.
Yeah, where is that mute button when you need it? I guess the question is, what can be said about the busyness of a lifestyle and its ability to find mindfulness and pursue the meditation? And I guess I'm just asking because my life gets kind of hectic at times and I don't think it's helping. Maybe I just need a reminder, but that's all I could come up with.
I'll go back to something I said earlier, which is, what are you prepared to give up? I'm sure there are practical considerations, and like I said, I think these things, they come down the line with us. It's not like you solve these habitual tendencies. It's rather you learn to accommodate them and manage them and lessen their significance through that. And then you're far more able to turn off a tendency because you've acknowledged it, because you've accommodated it. So whatever it is, it's like, you do. I mean, we have to prioritize, and the insights won't come unless you prioritize meditation. And if there are other things that are going on which render the mind incapable of watching what's unfolding, then it's suggestive that if the spiritual dimension, for want of a better word, is a priority, then some of the more material aspects, you can afford to let them go. And you know, I think with not wanting to go off the deep end, but I think a daily death recollection when you first get up in the morning, it's usually just behind your left shoulder, according to Carlos Castaneda. Just have a chat with death. He'll tell you what's important. They.
All right.
That's not the most enthusiastic response to the idea that you look at your own death squarely in the face as a way of motivating yourself to practice more. Does that help, Jim? I hope it helps.
It certainly does. Yes. Thank you, Paul.
David.
Hello.
Hello.
By the way, I just wanted to say real quick, thank you for repeating over and over. Some people, such as myself, I need it to be repeated many times in many different ways in order for me to eventually get it. So it is definitely wanted and appreciated.
No, not at all. I will continue to do so, because for me it's quite easy, you know. Or, oh, they just want me to repeat it again. Oh, okay. don't have to think of anything new. Thank goodness for that.
But yeah, anyway, my question was, it's regarding the post made earlier today on the Friends of the House of Inner Tranquility Facebook page. Natalie posted it, and it was from their Alan and Jacques James book, Modern Buddhism.
Okay.
And the quote is, anyone taking the Bodhisattva vow promises, among other things, to put aside thoughts of his own enlightenment until all beings in the world are freed. What does this really mean? Where are all beings in the world? And my question is, like, I want to know if my interpretation of this particular post is accurate.
Okay.
And so I have, like, the simplistic interpretation, which I think this is wrong, is to just go out in the world and to try and, like, tell people about Buddhism, and then you're just going to get a whole lot of, like, backlash, and, like, people have different religions. So I don't think that's the right approach.
Yeah, I agree.
And then I think another wrong approach is, like, the philosophical solipsis, where you just imagine that everyone and everything in the world is in your mind. And so then you don't have a regard for consequence. I think that's a wrong interpretation too. Yeah. So it kind of leads me on to believe that what's really being said here is you have, or we all have, or I have, I should say, because I'm really speaking about myself here. I have, like, wants for my friends and family to be happy, to be loved, and to be free, but I have to let go of my interpretation of who they are in order for them to actually be free. Am I right there? Or
that's a very good point that you're making. I haven't seen the post, and I can't remember the original quote. It's many years since I read Modern Buddhism, but I think that's a very interesting way of looking at it. Yeah, I like to say that in the course of this training, you learn to let the world go free, which is mean you're freeing people from the prison of your expectations for them or your judgments about them. Yeah, which is an absolutely necessary step on the path of coming to an understanding. Because how can you understand things if you're trying to get everything to conform to your ideas of things? It's just you're lost in a prison. Now, I think that maybe perhaps I hadn't taken the Bodhisattva vow, because the idea for me that I would wait until absolutely everyone else was enlightened before I became enlightened was the stupidest thing I've ever heard. without a shadow of a doubt, the stupidest thing I've ever heard. But if it is that what the vow really means is that I will work towards my enlightenment, and through the reduction in levels of suffering and the increase in levels of wisdom, I will therefore be of use to other people, perhaps, then that's fine. That seems like a very reasonable approach. And I do get that perhaps that vow was sort of set up as a way of getting people to stop obsessing about the goal. Because if you're obsessing about the goal of the Buddha's teaching, you're not paying attention to what's unfolding in your experience now. We can see that in a meditation. If you're goal orientated in a meditation, you're not just looking at what's unfolding in your experience now, you're trying to make the meditation conform to your expectations. So in that sense, it does make sense. But I get the sense that, not wishing to be overly controversial, he said, knowing full well he was just about to be very controversial, I get the sense that people use the Bodhisattva vow as a way of ignoring their suffering, as a way of not doing the practice, but at the same time, creating the facade of being a really righteous human being. And that sounds extraordinarily critical, but that's the sense I get with some people, that they take the Bodhisattva vow as a way of subtly avoiding looking at what's really going on in their experience, because they say, I don't want to run the risk of accidentally becoming enlightened before everyone else, because I'm such a righteous human being and I'm so unselfish. You see what I mean?
Yeah, I do.
So it's a subtle, I think it's a subtle thing, but if the vow is, I'm going to let everyone go free, I'm not going to try to convince them that I'm right and that Buddhism's right. I'm going to let them go free. I understand that they suffer and they want to be happy. I suffer and I want to be happy. Therefore, I'm going to work diligently on the path. And through that, I will become a person more able to be of assistance to others through the development of wisdom and the reduction in levels of suffering. And then who knows what might come of it. And that's the approach I took. And look where we are now.
All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you, David. That's a really brilliant question. And I'll need to go up and look up that quote for myself. But I think you're right. I think it is the idea of releasing people from the grip of your expectations for them and your judgments about them.
Okay.
Great. Peter, good evening. You're on mute, I believe.
How's that?
That's much better.
Oh, right. In the breakout room, the members that I was joined up with, they told me to ask a question about the way I practice. And I was telling them I do a 4-hour sitting every morning. It's something I learned at the last monastery that I left 5 or 6 years ago. And I suppose basically I should be asking, is there anything I should watch out for? Any problems that might arise with that? Or maybe I should, whether I should be doing it at all.
Well, there's no strict right or wrong answer. But what's the quality of that? It's not quantity, it's the quality. So if you're saying that you sit for 4 hours and you enter into the first jhana, the second jhana, the third jhana, the fourth jhana, it's like, I'll be coming to you to ask what you're doing, because I'd really like to be able to do that. But so it's about the quality of, it's not about how long you sit. I guess make sure you go to the loo before you start.
I think I think what this last teacher had in mind was my mind being so scattered, so obsessed with detail. He first told me to use a mantra of don't know as a kind of a Zen technique. Just keep repeating, don't know. And
That's my motto.
When he saw me progressing with that, he then suggested the 4-hour sitting. But he was a bit of a sadist. He expected it to not.
That's exactly the thought that went past through my mind.
Right. Yeah, he said to not move throughout the whole of that time, and of course I do move, but I move enough to keep the balance going, to keep the mental balance going, just enough to keep that going. And
Peter, I would say that, you know, I'm not going to contradict another teacher. I don't know what the history of it is, but to me, 4 hours seems unnecessarily excessive.
yes,
I don't know what value it gives. You know, it's you know, we meditate for a maximum of an hour when people are on retreat.
yes,
It's not about sitting in a chair.
right.
It's incorporating mindfulness into all aspects of one's life.
Yes,
Having a shave, getting in the car and, you know, driving somewhere or catching the bus somewhere or washing the dishes.
right.
There's nothing special about sitting quietly in a chair other than it's just a more formal way of working the mindfulness muscle so the muscle grows.
Yes,
Unless somebody is doing like a samatha practice, in which case I would say if they're properly on the button with their samatha practice, and it takes time, like it's usually the case with me that it's towards the end of the hour that the actual process is deepening and deepening and deepening, and it seems like a real shame to have to ring the bell at that point. But I do, because I appreciate that the people surrounding me might not want to do a 4-hour meditation with me. And so, but that's a specific set of circumstances where meditating for a longer period of time seems to have worth.
yes.
I would, you know, but I don't know about you, and I don't know about, you know what's going on in your life, how your mind works, all these kind of things. So I'm not in a position to sort of say, no, you shouldn't be doing that. But it to my mind, for anyone, it would seem unnecessarily excessive.
Yes, I think in the monastic environment, they do expect you to be more samadhi inclined, so that you look holy, as it were, so to speak, to inspire the lay supporters. And there's probably a lot of that involved in it. And
There is a lot of facade involved in the spiritual realms.
Yes.
Just as much as there are in the material realms.
Yes.
And, you know, getting past the first 3 fetters is extraordinarily difficult.
Yes.
We can't blame people, but by the same token, I do understand what you're saying.
Yes.
I think it's really coming back to, what is the meditation really all about? What is the Buddha's teaching really all about? Is it really all about learning how to sit for 4 hours? Or is it actually something a lot more helpful? Is it actually learning to look at unfolding experience, learning to look at and explore the true nature of conscious experience, rather than you know, essentially trying to run a marathon? It's a subtle business of, it's like, how do we develop wisdom?
Yes.
How do we develop wisdom into the true nature of reality? We do it by looking at it.
Yes.
And that doesn't, so sitting in meditation, formally sitting in a chair or sitting cross-legged, however, it doesn't have to be for a long time.
Yeah.
It's the quality of what you see. It's the quality of your mindful noticing, not the length of time that you sit.
Yeah.
That's where I place the emphasis.
Yeah. I think he, over the 10, 12 years I was there, he got to know me quite well.
Okay.
And I must say the first 3 hours are pretty hopeless. In the first hour, I just crash. If it wasn't for my alarm clock that I set for 30-minute intervals, it would be completely hopeless. And it's only by the fourth hour that it comes together, and I get some decent clarity. And maybe that's it, maybe it's something he just told me to do because of my proclivities. And
this is just an idea, Peter. But what I suggest is like try meditating for 8 hours. Because I think what you'll find is if you meditate for 8 hours in an 8-hour stretch, it will be the last hour that you start to gain some clarity.
It's quite possibly true, yes.
So by the same token, why not meditate for half an hour? Maybe the last 5 minutes you'll have some clarity.
The trouble is I crash right out. I don't know what happens in the first half hour until my alarm goes off.
Okay. But you see what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like I was saying, it's at the end of the hour when I'm practicing samatha, I'm taking the meditation. It's right at the end of the hour, weirdly, that everything comes together and it goes lovely and deep. And I thinking, please don't insist that I have to ring the bell. But I know I have to ring the bell at that point.
Yes.
It's at the end.
Yes.
Why is it at the end? It all comes together.
Yes.
There's a reason.
Yes.
It's because you give up.
Right.
Stop trying. It all comes together because you stop trying.
Yeah. Yes, that's very true. Yeah.
All right. Well, Lucy wants to say hello. So food for thought, Peter.
Yes, it is indeed. Yes.
Okay.
It's worth pondering on. Thank you.
Okay. Lucy.
Hi. Well, I think that my question is probably answered and unnecessary. It was in our group breakout room, the question of movement during meditation came up. If you're in enough pain that you feel the need to stop, is it better to move in order to keep the meditation going? Or is it better to sit still, but perhaps cut the meditation short? But I think that one of the things that is apparent is that as long as you keep the meditation to a proper length, you can keep the meditation going and sit still, as that were. Would that be the correct answer?
Never cut the meditation short. You'll never learn anything. Because the things that we have to learn are the difficult things. They're not the easy things. There's nothing to learn when the mind is tranquil. No one cuts the meditation because it's become tranquil. Not enough suffering. So we only ever are tempted to cut the meditation short because there's something we don't want to look at. There's something we don't want to acknowledge. So that's why we don't cut the meditation short. I mean, I'm in the shrine room with everyone, and I can tell when somebody's having a bit of a tough time. Is it compassionate for me to ring the bell and say, "Oh, I've cut this one short because so and so is having a bit of a tough time over there"? It's not gonna happen. It's not going to happen. So
okay, so if
wait. You don't cut the meditation short. You don't get out of the chair. You don't move. You face it. First arrow, second arrow. You go, I don't want to face the first arrow. It's the second.
I'm talking about physical pain rather than
I know.
feelings.
I know.
Right.
But if Peter can do 4 hours, you can do half hour. Like, because otherwise we're just dilettantes. We're just spiritual tourists. We don't really want to know the truth of things. We don't really want to confront reality. We just want it to be nice. God, I'm in a feisty mood again, aren't I? But it has to be said, because otherwise, it's like, oh, I'd love to tell you the things I've had to put up with in meditation. But those are the rules. You don't stop a meditation early, and you don't move. Otherwise, you'll never learn about craving. You'll never learn about wanting life to be different than it is. So I've got a few hands raising now. Jason. Good evening, sir.
It just made me think. I remember hearing Alan say, well, if the pain gets bad enough, you'll just pass out anyway.
That's the spirit. Did you has everyone read Life as a Siamese Monk? The Venerable Kapilawado? He had double pneumonia, and his teacher said, sit in the corner, meditate, you might die. On that bombshell, Mark.
I was just saying on the question of someone in physical pain. Say, for instance, someone has broken a limb or something, and they're kind of,
meditation.
What I was going to say was, if they're kind of habitually do, say, like an hour at a time, might they put in the volition to sit for half an hour, but not to move?
Yeah.
So that actually the intention is there and it's clear from the beginning, and so that doesn't then create a kind of that kind of a tendency habitually to then give up in future meditations, but rather to be a bit more practical, say, just for that, for that sitting, and maybe for like the next few weeks, and then when they made a recovery, they increase it. They put in the volition, the intention, the resolve, and no matter how hard it gets, they stay with it, and then gradually they build back up.
Perfectly valid, because they're not reneging on their intentions. By all means, sit for less time. If there is a serious physical complaint, then it might not be appropriate to meditate at all for the time being. But that doesn't mean you can't practice mindful noting. But you're just not going to sit formally for a period of time. But if you have decided to sit for half an hour, you sit for half an hour. If that means I'm not going to sit for an hour, I'm going to sit for half an hour, that's perfectly legitimate.
Well,
you're not reneging on that intention.
I had a really bad back for some time, and I remember you saying to me, Paul, meditate standing up, leaning against a wall. I kind of thought, but I did. I was able to, because I couldn't actually sit down for longer than a few minutes. So, and then, gradually over time, I brought it back.
Yeah. Some people are upset that we don't sit cross-legged because it's not the Buddhist thing. But hands up, how many of us have hips that could possibly deal with that anymore? I don't see any hands going up. Oh, Liz, your hand's up, but I don't think for that reason. It's just, you have to be pragmatic. You have to be sensible. And if you understand the underlying concept, and the underlying concept is not being able to sit cross-legged in double lotus for 3 days, it's paying attention and mindfully noting what's going on in your experience in order to develop wisdom. You can do it standing on your head, but you don't have to. You could just do it while you're out for a walk, just doing the washing up. All those mundane things that we reject as not being spiritual enough. That's where you'll find nibbana. Liz.
Yeah. Can you just say something about when someone doesn't have any pre-existing physical condition that causes pain, which I understand will make wanting to change position something, the link between the tension in the meditation and not wanting to accept the way things are?
Well,
that's more my experience. Yeah.
Yeah. There's not a, you know, a well understood physiological condition. It's something that just arises in meditation when you attempt to meditate
frequently.
Yeah, there's something, and this is what I was talking about with Oscar. It's like there has to be the willingness to accept that the tension is actually telling you something.
Mm-hmm.
It's telling you that you're ignoring something. In something is arising in meditation, in your experience, and you don't want to acknowledge it. It doesn't mean necessarily you don't know what it is. You might know full well what it is,
mm-hmm.
but you feel that you have to get around it in order for the meditation to be being practiced properly. So it's a failure to recognize that whatever it is that's there is there by rights, and all that needs to be done is it needs to be acknowledged.
Mm.
So if you're getting tense, it means that you believe that the meditation should be different than it is.
Mm.
There's either something that is there that you feel shouldn't be there, or it's not what you had expected it to be, and you feel like you have to force things in order to make it what you want.
Mm.
And that creates an unbearable tension. And that tension is not just, it is a painful mental feeling ultimately, but it has a physical component. So you will find yourself getting very, very tense, you know, and you'll start getting headaches and pains in the back and all kinds of things.
Thank you. And that phrase, it's just about accepting, that I just wanted to say that can take an individual a long time to actually manage to turn towards it and accept it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. That's why this is a lifetime journey.
Yeah.
You have to be prepared to spend your life, but there'll come a point, and that's all part of the process of accommodating and making allowance for things. If you accommodate and allow for the fact that this is a lifetime journey, that takes a lot of potential aggravation away, because you say, oh, I've got plenty of time. I don't have to rush with this meditation. Nothing's going to be solved today. Let me just reflect on everything that I've learned so far. Okay, I know it gets tense, and I know that it gets tense because there are things, you know, there are things that I think shouldn't be there. What do I have to do? I have to relax, be open, receptive, wait for things, be patient, give the meditation time to settle down, not rush in. You think those things through before you start, and then you adopt that kind of outlook. You know, and you know, things that Alan would say, you know, it's like you have to go to the other extreme. So it's doing nothing in the meditation, and then experiencing all the agitation that comes with not being productive, and all the guilt and shame that comes with not being productive, and all of that. That's the process. You have to be able to be willing to look at all of that in order to finally let go of this sense in which I have to force the pace and push things. So yes, so it's accepting that tension is either a rung or more than one rung on your ladder.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And it takes time. That's yeah. Thank you very much. That's lovely.
Yeah, we're all different. We're, you know, I look at the, you know, the speed with which I went through the insight knowledges. You know, at the time I thought, God, you're really tardy. It's taken a long time. And now I'm trying to learn samatha, and it's like, you know, I've got my dunce's hat on. You know, it's like, oh, it's taken more than 2 decades. Oh no, I'm approaching my the end of my second decade trying to work it out. So, you know, so we're all different. And again, it's relaxing into that. If this is a lifetime journey, if the Buddha is a a lifetime companion for you, you've got nothing to worry about. And think about, even if it's going to take more than one lifetime, think about all the actions you're performing. Think about the actions you're performing right now by being here and contributing. Their actions are all saying yes to coming to understanding, yes to the development of wisdom, yes to mindfulness, yes to realizing nibbana. So we can't underestimate that. As a final thought, I did get another message from two people who I don't think made it, Sam and Chaim, and they just asked, we've been listening to your podcast and would like to request a topic for the next one. Well, it doesn't quite work like that, but I said I'd just talk about this evening. The topic we would like to hear your thoughts on is how a couple can become enlightened, which I thought was really interesting. So obviously they want to become enlightened together. And that just made me think of the founders of the center here, Alan and Jackie, who, by all accounts, realized nibbana in exactly the same moment together. It's quite an astonishing thing, a very unique thing. However, they both had to go through all the insight knowledges by themselves. They might have had some sort of proximate location close to one another, but they were both separate individuals who both had to go through all the insight knowledges. What I think happened at the end was that they'd completed the 4 paths, but were not enlightened. It's one of the things you have to get over as a Theravadan Buddhist practitioner. The end of the 4th path is not enlightenment. They'd completed the 4 paths and both knew that they weren't enlightened. However, they were very close and psychically very close. And I think that enlightenment is not something that comes to you. This is an erroneous idea. Enlightenment is what's left when you stop ignoring. And so a point came for both of them in the same moment where something clicked and they just stopped ignoring what's right in front of them and realized that they did indeed know. So the whole purpose of the insight training is to get rid of all the latent causes of us ignoring reality. And once that process is complete, there is just this wonderful, beguiling, stepless step, where you just miraculously go from not knowing to knowing, and you know. And there's no confusion. There's no vagueness. Someone who genuinely knows is not vague. They know, with a knowing that goes beyond words. So to Sue and Chaim, I'd say, whatever path you choose, you might very well choose to walk that path together, but whatever path it is, you both have to do that individually and come to your understanding through I would say through the development of wisdom. So that's my answer for that. So we've been going over an hour, so I think we should stop. Oh, Oscar, you've got a question. It will need to be quick, my friend.
Paul, would you say yourself, have you realized Nirvana?
I'll let other people answer that for me. Thank you.
All right, good night.
All right, good night. All right, everyone. So we will, I think we'll call it the night there. Lovely to see you all. Thank you for all your contributions. I really enjoyed it. Got a bit feisty there in the middle, but nonetheless.
Thank you, Paul. Most enjoyable.
Thank you, Paul.
Good
Good night.
night.
Thank you, Paul.
Yeah, thank you, Paul.